everyone, and welcome to our annual Business Beyond Borders. We are thrilled to put together leaders, investors, and professionals to explore the immense opportunities within the Cali-Baja region. This event is designed to position our binational area as a prime investment destination, offering key insights into cross-border investments, regional projects, and economic trends that shape our shared future. While we celebrate the strength of both sides, we place a special emphasis on the border region, where collaboration drives innovation and growth. Today is about building connections, sharing knowledge, and unlocking new opportunities in real estate and investment. Before we begin, I want to thank our amazing sponsors. We'll hear from them at the end of the program. Our speakers, the Yankee Association of Realtors from Mexico, thank you for driving up. The Baja State Group for always supporting our events. Our wonderful international committee, all SDAR members, and everyone in attendance. All right, ready. Our first speaker and today's moderator is Genie Irish. She is 2025 president of NAHREP San Diego chapter, the founder of Costa Modern Properties. A seasonal real estate professional, she has assisted over 150 clients the past 36 months. Committed to empowering Hispanic women and promoting homeownership as a path to financial security, Genie combines deep market expertise, strategic marketing, and strong negotiation skills to deliver exceptional service. As the host of the American Dream, she continues to uplift her community and highlight the vibrant South Bay lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, Genie Irish.
I'm Genie Irish. I'm the president of the 2025 NAHREP chapter. NAHREP is the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. There's over 120 chapters in the nation. There's thousands and thousands of members. Here locally, we have 300 members. And what this does is raises funds to advocate for sustainable housing, policy change. I flew in last night from Washington, D.C. And we were able to meet with Senator. I'm sorry? I don't know. I sent him a secure line text. Too soon. He didn't ask me for. Anyway, so we were able to speak about macro and micro policies that we were meeting. And we didn't even get into obviously immigration reform or anything else. It was just about what is affecting home buyers in San Diego, which is affordability, right? Affordability, insurance, which is something I think a lot of us have not even felt as it will come down the line with fires, earthquakes, condo approvals, right, 100%, condo insurance, all those things that affect homeowner affordability. So it's not just affordable housing, it's other measures that are affecting capital gains. Capital gains measure hasn't been lifted in ages. So if you have over 250K in gains, you're going to be taxed a third, right? And so when is that going to be evaluated? When is that going to be raised? So those are just kind of the speaking points. We're actually bringing real life, examples and real life information to people who make decisions and write bills to be passed. So just flew in last night. I felt like it was very important to be here today to kind of talk about NAHREP. We're growing. We have our next event, Cinco de NAHREP, May 1st, Rancho La Palma, which is off the 905. It's vaquero style, so none of this stilettos, no black suits, nothing. One that they kind of, it could be Uchona vaquera or vaquera, whatever vaquera you want. All is welcome. And then more Yellowstone vaqueros is welcome for sure. And so we will be there May 1st. And it's an incredible place to also do networking and meeting agents, like-minded agents who do business or are trying to do business and educate themselves on both sides of the border. I'm a border kid. I grew up in Imperial Beach, walking across, I'm a global member, walking across Tijuana to go visit my tia or go party too early on is is part of our life and part of what we bring as border children, and bringing that education so that everyone can, grow towards homeownership, because the way to get to wealth is not the lottery. It is homeownership, right? And so we are all vehicles of providing that to people, and especially people who look and sound just like us, right? So if you want information on NAHREP, find me. And without further ado, I'll get to why I'm doing it, right? David is. I'm here to introduce Lucas Coleman. He's very good at Spanish, to make sure you have a conversation later. It's fluent. As the director of the World Trade Center, San Diego, Lucas Coleman leads the organization's efforts across its three priorities: exports, foreign direct investment, and global IT connectivity. He managed a team of full-time staff and trade consultants, leveraging federal, state, and private sector funds to drive international business growth. Coleman also established and operates the Export Small Business Development Center at the World Trade Center, San Diego, supporting local businesses and expanding to global markets. His work focuses on maximizing foreign investment opportunities in strategic industries and collaborating with regional stakeholders, including government, business, port, airport, military, and academia, to position San Diego as a key player in the global economy. Lucas Coleman.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? I'm going to stand over here so I'm not blocking anyone off. My name is Lucas Coleman. I'm the director of the World Trade Center here in San Diego. It's part of the San Diego Regional EDC. As you can expect, it's been a really crazy last couple months in the world of trade and investment, and we are getting a lot of questions about tariffs and how that's impacting trade and investment flows. But what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to set some context around the San Diego region and what its core economic drivers are, and dive into those in a little more detail, and hopefully set the stage for some more of the discussions that are going to happen later on. But here we are in the southwestern corner of the United States. We're about 1% of the United States' population, about 1.5% of the GDP here. And when my organization thinks about the San Diego region, we really look at it as a binational mega region of 7 million people bisected by an international border. And so that includes Imperial Valley, and it includes Baja California. And the reason for that being, we have such a highly integrated economy. I mean, consider that 40% of US imports from Mexico already contain US made content, and it's a similar number the other way around. 40% of Mexican imports from the US already contain Mexican labor, and it's particularly pronounced in the industries that we're most competitive in. So semiconductors, autos, medical devices, and so that's one of the reasons. And then you can also look at the infrastructure here. We have our border crossings. On the very left, the San Ysidro border crossing is actually the busiest land border crossing in the Western Hemisphere. And after Singapore and Hong Kong's border crossings, the third busiest on the entire planet. In addition to that, so what we have there is a lot of commerce going back and forth, a lot of cargo, but then also a lot of people going back and forth, working and living on both sides of the border. We have major ports here in downtown and in Ensenada. And I would say one of the weaknesses for our port is that we're not a major containerized port. However, what we do have a lot of is break bulk. So for companies that are bringing in a lot of heavy equipment and machinery, that can be a positive of working here in San Diego. We also have a downtown airport, and there's also Rodriguez Field just across the border with Tijuana. So what San Diego has is direct connectivity to places like Munich, London, several airports in Canada. We have East Asia through Tokyo. We don't have a China connection. However, this is an example of how we work really closely with our partners across the border. We have the Cross-Border Express, which allows people to park on the US side of the border, walk through that terminal, and it spits you out on the other side at a gate for Tijuana's airport, thereby giving us access to, pretty soon, 3 different flight options to China. So it's a highly integrated system here, and I think that's important to point out early on. So my organization, which by the way, we are a membership organization, it's about 80% private sector funded. So really the largest companies here in the San Diego region, your Qualcomms, your Illuminas, your Viasats, and Sempras, they invest in us, as well as the Port Authority, the airport, the cities in this county, and San Diego County and the university. So really, the largest entities that have an impact on economic development outcomes come together, and we sort of convene them as a nonpartisan entity to do research and core economic development work like site selection, incentive support. We give them a lot of research around what salaries and talent looks like here, and then we hold their hand through the process and really steward them through those projects. So with that context out of the way, when we and our research team think about the regional economy, we really talk about our traded clusters: tourism, the military, and the innovation economy. And the reason that we do this is really how we interact with the outside world. They have high jobs multipliers, and they pull in resources in terms of money and in terms of high-skilled talent. We have a dedicated tourism authority here, so I won't get too deep into this, but obviously this is one of the main ways that people first learn about San Diego. Through our convention center, we bring in major life sciences and technology conferences that bring a lot of talent here, and they go to places like the Torrey Pines Mesa to meet with our higher education institutions and research institutes, and ultimately start businesses here. Another thing I'll point out, because we do have a lot of guests from across the border here, is medical tourism is something that continues to grow. And I know that's something that's also driving rents and prices up south of the border too. And so that's something that in the long term, over the next 10 years, we see continuing to happen here in San Diego, and kind of playing off the fact that we have a lot of research in the life sciences and also medical devices being developed here, and also a lot of happening on both sides of the border. Defense is important to point out because it's a quarter of the economy when you think about direct and indirect spend. And something else that's interesting is this has really been an important part of San Diego's economic development strategy for more than a century. San Diego was very important to the US effort in World War II, and following that, after a lot of the ships and airplanes had been produced here, the Department of Defense went to the UC system and requested that they put a campus here in San Diego. And through that, a lot of federal funding was injected into UC San Diego to develop early on. It was satellite communications and later wireless communications and other information communication technologies. Over time, San Diego, particularly through UC San Diego, got really good at capturing federal funding, and that translated over to things like the life sciences. So this is huge. It brings a lot of procurement dollars to San Diego, right? We're over $10 billion in terms of procurement dollars going to private industry, and that catalyzes other industries. And companies like Qualcomm are a great example of that because their first big contract was through the Department of Defense. Now, my organization really focuses here on our innovation cluster, and you can see the industries that really fall within that. We're talking biotech, we're talking medical device, information communication technologies, aerospace, clean technologies. And what really makes this all work is the fact that San Diego is extremely well educated and one of the most patent intensive and inventive regions, not just in the United States, but globally. So we'll start with the life sciences, which is probably our biggest strength at this point in time. You can see at the very top there, the first bar is biotech R&D. San Diego really excels in early stage drug discovery. And a lot of that is due to the fact that around UC San Diego in the La Jolla Torrey Pines area, we have more than 80 private research institutions, which gobble up a ton of NIH funding. Folks like J. Craig Venter, after they decoded the human genome, decided to place their namesake institute right there, just a mile away from UC San Diego, or within a mile away. Below that, you'll also see that R&D services is actually one of the greatest exports out of San Diego too. When we talk about medical device, San Diego and Tijuana together is the largest medical device cluster in the world. We have a lot of R&D happening here. We have a lot of headquarters and R&D functions from companies like BD, Medtronic, and Dexcom. And then you have a lot of manufacturing that takes place on that side. One of the advantages of doing that is that rather than go to a place like India or Southeast Asia in terms of time zones, You're very close in terms of physical proximity. You can influence culture. You can send samples back and forth much easier. So it's something that's worked out very well as the quality of manufacturing in Baja has improved over the years. So I kind of talked about this. We have a big cluster that's formed around UTC, Sorrento Valley, Sorrento Mesa, Torrey Pines, and you have not just UC San Diego and J. Craig Venter Institute, which I talked about, but we have Sanford Burnham Prentice, we have the Salk Institute doing a lot of cancer research, and the Scripps Research Institution, which does translational research very well. So moving from basic sciences and research to they call it from basic sciences to bedside, something that we can actually use as a consumer. Over the last 5 years, we've seen the life sciences really close the gap with tech, which traditionally had more of a presence in terms of employment and economic impacts here in San Diego. So when we're talking about tech, it really starts here with Qualcomm. I talked about that defense contract with Linkabit, and they were doing satellite communications. Ultimately, they moved towards CDMA technology, really became the core for everything that makes a cell phone work. Viasat actually had a similar story. They were doing satellite communications for the military and now do in-flight Wi-Fi for not just commercial airlines, but also for Air Force One. So that's a pretty common story that you see. One thing that really sets San Diego's tech industry apart is that it's very multidisciplinary. So ASML is the largest company in the Netherlands. They're one of the most important companies in the world because they make the massive multi-million-dollar lithography machines that make semiconductor chips. One of their most important business units is here in San Diego, the Cymer Light Source division. They make the lasers that cut the grooves into wafers, and these are at the nanometer level. There's only so many places in the world that has the skill set to make these kinds of machines. So San Diego and Wilton, Connecticut are the two places in the US that they have a presence, and they're here because of the multidisciplinary nature of our engineering talent. So that's kind of the moat for San Diego, is the quality of talent, and it really bridges a lot of different disciplines. Another example of this would be unmanned systems or drone technology. General Atomics has its Predator and Reaper drone units developed here in San Diego. Northrop Grumman had the Global Hawk, which is now the Triton program. That's also in San Diego. It takes a lot of the hardware know-how and also the mapping technologies and the wireless communications technologies all working together. And so when we talk about tech, that's just something to understand that we're well positioned for the future. Cybersecurity is another area. And you can see the life sciences and tech really reflected in the VC funding here. You see the navy is life sciences and the teal color is tech. So $6.5 billion in 2024, about $3.5 billion of that was in the life sciences. You can see on the very end here, the pink, a lot of that was Viori's really big deal that they secured in Q4. But although pretty much everyone had a massive COVID bump, even if you take that out, San Diego's trajectory has been very consistent over the past decade and a half, and that's something that we're really happy to see. I kind of talked about aerospace here and the fact that we have kind of those major drone programs, and also another company that we were working with through the Export Accelerator that I run, Metro Connect, is companies that have unmanned systems, that they have drones that take off from sea, and they can also submerge into the sea. So those types of unmanned systems that can go from sky to seabed, that's another area where San Diego is really strong in. San Diego's been a leader in solar for a long time. Obviously, we have a lot of sunshine here, but we also have a lot of different types of clean tech that are being developed. I talked about Imperial Valley earlier to the east of San Diego. The largest proven reserves of lithium in North America are in Lithium Valley. And while we've had sort of a long permitting process for some of the companies like Controlled Thermal Resources and Energy Source, Berkshire Hathaway Energies that are out there, right now is the time that we're finally starting to be able to get some of that out of the ground. We obviously have a lot of the end consumers here. The gap in the ecosystem is really battery cells, battery pack manufacturing. When it comes to foreign investment, we see that as a potential opportunity to be working with places like Korea and Japan as we try and diversify away from China so that we're not so vulnerable. When it comes to manufacturing, you can see the navy and teal are California and the US, and the pink line at the top is San Diego. So we performed significantly better than the rest of the state and the rest of the country in the past 5 years when it comes to manufacturing. And one of the reasons for that is that ours is very innovative industries doing advanced manufacturing. And so if you can't read them from the back there, we have the life sciences, so life sciences manufacturing, tech manufacturing, aerospace, clean tech. So like I said before, not all of that kind of manufacturing can happen anywhere. And the fact that we also have this cross-border advantage where increasingly Baja California is an equal partner in doing that, that's super helpful to San Diego and a big advantage moving forward. So touch on talent here. San Diego is relatively young compared to the rest of the country, and we're incredibly diverse. It's already majority minority. And as we look at how well educated San Diego is relative to the rest of the country, whether you look at it nominally or by concentration, San Diego has a lot of bachelor degrees, but also a lot of STEM degrees that are conferred here. Big reason is a lot of the research institutions. In addition to UC San Diego State also became an R1 designated elite research institution in the past month too, so that helps. But we do have some challenges. So if you look at the innovation workforce of today for the innovation economy, about half of it is white. And when you look at K through 12, what the population demographically looks like in San Diego, it's flipped. It's about Hispanic. It's about half Hispanic or Latino ethnicity. And so when an organization like mine is working with the universities and with the employers and all the K through 12 education, we need to find a way to ensure that the right education is being delivered throughout the school system, and that opportunities to work in STEM and in the innovation economy is being disseminated to all corners of the community. So that's not my day-to-day work, but we do have folks at EDC that really do that. And there are efforts being made across the different universities. These are examples of a few programs at the university level. I won't dive too much into this, but really when we can start to look at this as a binational region and have that as a release valve, because everywhere across the United States, there's a war for talent, for software and engineering talent. And that company I was talking about earlier, ASML, at one point when we helped them open up a new facility, they had 400 to 500 job openings in engineering, and they couldn't fill those for an extended period of time. That's a huge threat to our region. If we have companies that we want here with highly skilled jobs they want to offer people, but they can't fill those jobs. So one thing that we've been working on with partners across the border is around software talent. I'm not sure if anyone knows Maritza Diaz over at ITJ, but what we're trying to do is help companies that are in those positions where they're not able to fill those jobs to look at some of the software talent south of the border. And there's actually been some good use cases. About 10 years ago, Thermo Fisher was able to set up the Software Center of Excellence, and other companies have sought to replicate it. And so we're seeing a lot of not just manufacturing, but software talent that's also being developed south of the border too. Let's talk about trade and investment for the San Diego region, and this is just for San Diego County. But when we look at exports out of the region, 4 of our top 10 exported categories are also 4 of our top 10 most imported categories, showing how highly integrated we are. We have about $2.5 billion annually in intermediate goods. So there's a stat thrown around that before an automobile is fully complete and sold to the consumer, it crosses an international border about 6 to 8 times. So what you see of a lot here, you see autos and auto-related parts up top, you see semiconductors just below that, medical devices, electromedical apparatus. A lot of this stuff isn't just a one and done and you sell the final product. We're adding bits and pieces along the way and really working together. We make things together. So when we talk about slapping 25% tariffs across the board on everything, that starts to add up and we really shoot ourselves in the foot particularly in this region because we rely on each other so much. And kind of talking about the evolution of that relationship. At first, the Maquiladora program was really a lot of assembly line manufacturing. Then in the 80s, we saw a lot of television sets and radio sets and other types of electronics, right? The automobile industry, of course. A lot of aerospace manufacturing happens there. About 14 of the 15 largest aerospace contractors are now manufacturing in Mexico. And over the past 10 years, the greatest growth category has been medical devices. So like I said earlier, it's more of a symbiotic relationship at this point, and not just assembly line manufacturing like it used to be. I just have a few more slides left, but when we talk about foreign investment into San Diego, this is the flow over the past 10 years or so. And what you see is a lot of Western Europe and Northern Europe, followed by East Asia. So you see the height of the bar is a total dollar value, and the orange dot is the number of deals. Now, the reason that we see a lot of Western Europe and East Asia is because when you think about the investment coming into San Diego, first, about 3/4 of it is in the life sciences. Second, 94% of it, almost all of it, is in mergers and acquisitions. So what you see a lot of is an established life sciences firm from Switzerland or from Japan will come in and acquire a San Diego company that's more early stage, like I said, early stage drug discovery, creating drugs that can treat cancer or whatnot. And they don't just gobble that up for the IP and fire, and usually they'll keep that know-how here and really build on it and give them resources. That's what we tend to see a lot of, and that's why Switzerland, the Netherlands, France are the top 3 markets. And then towards the end here, you start to see Japan, Taiwan, and Korea show up. Now, this is the flow over the past 10 years. So these are the trends. This is the number of foreign company jobs in San Diego. So this is a much longer time horizon. This is the foreign direct investment stock that exists in San Diego. And so here you see the long-standing partners of San Diego. The UK and Japan are number 1, followed by the Netherlands, Canada, and Ireland. And so it tends to be countries that have been here for a long time, and there are a lot of jobs attributed to them. So I'll finish here just a little bit about my organization. I talked about how we're mainly private sector funded and how it's a lot of the largest entities that impact economic development outcomes in San Diego. We do a lot of the services you'd expect an economic development organization to do. Like I said, site selection, incentive consulting, market intel. My team works more on the international side of things. But for you all here, I would say these are kind of the main things. We have tools that can help companies when they have the requirements of what they need. We can help them find the right area, and then we can work through our partners, and hopefully some of you can be partners with us too in getting these companies to the right facilities where they can be happy, where they can really grow and do that site selection. And then incentives, we have really good relationships with local government, with state government. And then on my team, we work with a lot of smaller businesses to help them expand internationally and grow their international market share through our export programs. We steward foreign investment projects from foreign multinationals. And then on the global identity front, we lead trade missions with our mayor, with our congressmen and business leaders. We were in Singapore last year and South Korea before that. We'll be in France later this year. And then we also do thought leadership. And the big thing that we're working on this year, in light of everything that's going on with trade, with tariffs, we're working on a binational trade and competitiveness study. We did this initially back in 2017, 2018 when NAFTA was being renegotiated, because at the time, getting good national and state level data is a little easier, but it's very hard to get the right data for how it's going to impact companies and individuals at a regional level. And we wanted to understand whether it was a good thing or a bad thing to have NAFTA, and whatever replaced it, what sorts of things could actually help our companies and our industries here. And so we're doing a revamp of that now. Initially, it was going to be because NAFTA or USMCA is up for recertification in 2026. But now, obviously, everything's been thrown on its head. We've got tariffs flying everywhere. So we really need to understand how that's going to impact our businesses, and also what strategies they can implement to try and insulate themselves from that and be more resilient against it. So, if some of you are interested and have connections to companies, I mean, we've already got companies that we're going to be interviewing through this too. But if you're interested in this, come find me later. I'll leave my contact info and this presentation with David. And with that, I'll pass it back. So thank you very much.
So before I'm going to introduce our next, I'm going to introduce the next speaker, Luis Manuel Hernandez, a PhD in business from Atlantic International University. Throughout his career, he has held leadership. Ya agarraron el vino y todo, ¿verdad? Everyone's ready? Okay. Leadership roles in medical, electronics, and consumer goods manufacturing industries, specializing in finance, materials, and operations. He is the co-author of 2 books. One of which is based by the U.S. universities as a reference for operations and cross-border business productivity. Mr. Hernandez serves as a board member of 2 financial institutions in Mexico and a real estate company specializing in relocation, as well as a nonprofit healthcare organization in Texas. Among his most significant accomplishments is the coordination and responsibility for the U.S.-Mexico border COVID-19 vaccination effort, in collaboration with the Mexican and U.S. federal government, benefiting more than 1.3 million families. Luis Manuel.
Thank you very much. Well, my name is Luis Hernandez. Been in San Diego since 2010. I want to thank Maria for inviting me. David, thank you for the coordination. So it is this kind of odd position for me because once I finish, you can drink. Okay, so I want to be, as they say, be bright, be brief, and be gone. Okay, so any question, you can let me know. So this is how I want to introduce my conversation. This is something that happens to us, and this is something that happens to countries as well. Every time you are winning, you don't think about losing. Okay, when you're doing the things right, you say, "I got the momentum. I got it. I got it hot hands." Okay. So what happened in the United States is this: back in 2000, okay, some of you were not even born. Yeah. So everything was blue. The U.S. was selling, they were providing, they were giving goods to the world. 2024, things changed. Everything turned red. Okay. What did China do? China said, you know what? I think I understand what they're doing. I think I understand because I'm sending my nationals to use schools. They are bringing the knowledge. We're applying the knowledge here. And I have the money. I'm being funded. So they started buying mines. Okay, that's minas, as we say in Mexico. So what they say is, I buy the mine, I have the raw material, and I have the guy that manufactures it, and I have the guy that sells it. So this is what happened to us. And this is how the economies evolve. They are important, yes, they are very important. We'll go into some details in a few minutes. But the key here is that this is what is happening. The market is changing. Everybody knows it. Okay? I was in Hong Kong 2 years ago, giving a presentation how Mexico companies could be together with Chinese companies and US companies, but then something happened starting this year. Somebody said, you know what, I don't want that. Okay. So what is happening is that the market changed, the consumers change, and there is a threat that we have and we don't speak about it. You need to manufacture goods good enough to fit the needs of people that is willing to pay a little bit less. Because in China, they will pay less for the same car that you're driving in the States. In India, they will pay the same for a car that is being manufactured here. But what is happening right now is that the problem that we have is most of the raw materials for the batteries are owned by China. That will not change. Okay? We believe we can change it, but it's not gonna happen. They own the mind. Okay? As well, every company, I work in a manufacturing company with jacuzzis. Jacuzzi is the name of the company. Everybody wants to charge more. You want to make this about price. Right now, it's not about price. It's who has it cheapest price, and the more service you can give me after I purchase from you. That is the decision that people make. So everything right now is going through logistics. How logistics is being accepted? What are the risks that we're seeing? And this is pretty much what the G7 group decided. You know what? We're going to talk about everything, and we're going to talk about trade as well. So trade is something that we live at the border. We have that embedded, as Lucas was saying, but we don't speak that too much about it because we live it every day. There are 3,000, between 3,000 and 3,500 trucks every day from Tijuana crossing the border to California. Nobody speaks about that. We know there is a lot of traffic in Tijuana. We know there is a lot of traffic in Monterrey. But that flow, for USMCA, the flow every minute of USMCA between Canada, Mexico, and the US is $3 million every minute. So it is significant. Okay? But since we live through it, we don't pay attention to it. We already have it. So that is why we call it polycrisis. Everybody's feeling something. They don't know what's going on. It's the age, it's the weather, significant other. You don't know, but you are not feeling comfortable enough. So polycrisis, what tells you is there's something going on. You don't know how to react to it. It is happening with or without you. You can save money, okay? But the thing is that the more you save, the less access you have to services. But when you want to get into those services, the price is way higher. Okay. So this is what the U.S. decided when Joe Biden started. We're gonna grow a part of the U.S. that back in 1994 when we signed the USMCA, at that time was the NAFTA. All that east of the U.S. moved out. It moved to Mexico, it moved to China, moved to everywhere because they were looking for what? Cheap labor. Okay. They would say, you know what? With what I pay in an hour in Michigan, I pay a day, including benefits in Mexico. I pay an hour in Michigan, I pay a day and a half in China. So it made sense. But what happened is that right now, if you take a car, the composition of labor in a car is between 3 and 4% only. It's not that significant anymore. Okay? So then we have this Magnificent Seven. You all know them. The problem that we're having on an economic way is that there are 7 companies that have a lot of the S&P 500. That means that there are some companies in the blue that you see there that are negative. They are not giving you what you're expecting. The S&P 500 is doing well because only 7 companies are doing well. The other companies, it is 493, are not doing that well. This is a guy that, when I did my PhD, he gave us 2 hours. He's very well bear some cash flow. And what he says, you know what, you need to adapt. Maybe your strategy had a shelf life. Maybe your strategy is kind of not going anywhere right now. Okay? So what we're seeing, this is not something that I invented. It's not my math. It's public information. It is the net international investment position, which tells you in Spanish and plain English, tells you how many assets the U.S. owns outside the U.S. and how many assets the other countries own in the U.S. Okay, assets and liabilities. So the U.S. owns 38 billion, sorry, $38 trillion outside the U.S. The problem that we're having and why we're talking about tariff and why we're thinking differently, we're having the crisis, is because many companies, many countries, sorry, have ownership of 62 trillion in the US. We don't speak about that. We speak about the surface, but this is a true problem. Why is a problem? Sorry. It started back in 2015 at 5 trillion. Right now is 30 something. China positive. As well, what we see is the US direct investment and as well the US portfolio. Are, we own something outside, but most of the companies they own a lot of shares here. So it will not be that easy for us to make it. Tariffs. You do tariff two ways, sectors and countries. Okay. Which sector you want to protect? Okay. We've been talking about tariffs for the past 2 months. It's very dynamic. Let's say tariff on, tariff off, right? What we're seeing right now is going through cars. Okay. What I was reading today, every car in the US will cost between 2,000 to 12,000 more if you apply the 25%. 2,000, the cheapest one, 12,000, the most expensive one. That is something that we all will be paying. Okay. But there's a problem. We might say, you know what? I will not purchase any car. I have my car. 2008, still going, right? But the spare parts will be with that 25%. It's going to be higher. It's going to be more expensive to repair that car. All these countries, negative numbers. That is something that needs to change. I don't care about the color, Democrat or Republican. It needs to change. There needs to be a change for this to make it better. We need to protect the market. Yes, we need to protect the market. We need as well to gain advantage. Something that we lost as a country, as the US, is that a lot of the patents that we had here, they were replicated in other countries. Now we cannot compete on patents because they just improve it. Okay? And then employment protection. So what we're seeing right now is that there are certain companies getting into the automotive industry, which are Google, all these guys that do software. Software grows 30% a year. That's kind of the median. Car market grows 3% a year. So you do the math and you say, you know what, I want to be on the software side. I want to provide you the software for your car. Okay? You can go into McKinsey and get the 10 questions that are being asked for the dealers in the US when you purchase a car, and the 10 questions that are being asked to a dealer in China. 7 of the 10 questions in China are about connectivity. In the US, only 2 questions out of the 10. Okay? So that is where we're heading to. What do we need to protect is semiconductors, consumer-defined energy, over the time. But, okay. And pretty much mines or rare earth, as they call it. So there is this kind of yin and yang, okay? I need to understand the economic resilience and the nation's security. This is what the companies will be looking for. I know you all know your market, okay? The company that I work for, we used to have 3 sites, okay, in Tijuana. Right now we have only 1 site. Okay? We're considering everything into 1 site. We're being more productive. We're thinking about sustainability, getting the same output on 1 site. Okay? That's 1. Number 2, it is back at that time, 7, 8 years ago, the price per square feet was 58, 57 cents. Okay? Right now, you start talking about 85, but you don't have energy. And we that live in the border, and you say, you know what? You're meaning that once I cross there is no energy. Well, there is energy, but not what you wanna rent. Okay? How do I explain that to somebody in Chicago? Well, you can shoot an email and they answer, right? So the problem that we're having is that sustainability is not becoming a common word about the 3 countries. Canada, Mexico, and the US said we need to speak the same language. We're not speaking the same language. Okay, this is something that it gets to me every time I see it. It is very easy to believe. But as one boss said, is hope is not a strategy, right? Hope is just hope. There's no plan around hope. It is you're just waiting for something to happen. And that something to happen is not under your control. So what we're seeing is trade policy and investment. We're talking about with the US and investment. So the GDP for the US is mostly on service. Either we like it or we don't like it, it's mostly on service. That is where we generate most of the monies. Okay? So there is an opportunity. What opportunity do I see here at the border if the aftermarket that we call? As Lucas was saying, there is a lot of maquila thought process in Baja California, in Tijuana, Mexicali. We want to manufacture something, but we're not thinking of aftermarket, on selling stuff there. We're thinking of using labor that is cheaper than here, just doing something and selling it. You know what? You need to start thinking about the maintenance. You know what? We have the, as he was mentioning, the health wellness cluster in Tijuana and San Diego. We need to think, how do we sell them? How we engage with them? This is kind of the greatest change that I will be seeing. I'm part of this group. I'll be part of the group that will be negotiating for US, the USMCA 2026. And everything will be about commerce. Okay, if it is helping the commerce of the US, then we'll do something different. We'll talk about trade based on commerce, based on flow of goods. This, you can Google it. This is coming. This is changing every single minute. There is a lot happening. There's a lot that we don't hear at the news, but you just go there, go to the store, and there is something that is, you know, this is not making sense in my pocket. I posted this in Mexico. Well, in Mexico, because the person that has my marketing is in Tijuana. She does marketing for San Diego, Tijuana. She posted this through LinkedIn. Some of the comments that we got were from the Mexico board. They say, you know what, the number should be higher. It might be, but that is just 10% tariffs that's going to cost us here for Chinese products. Okay, but guess what? I posted this, and kind of 3 weeks later, the 10 went to what? Went to 20. So you just do the math and just double check it with your partner. That is something that will be happening through this year. There's a lot going on. Parts need to go from Canada to Mexico to the US. This is on the automotive industry. That will not change, depending on Republicans, Democrats. Key for us, those are the numbers. That is the $3 million I was telling you. There is a lot of employment involved here. There is a lot of GDP. This is the part that out of the $219 billion that have been invested by the three countries, Mexico is around 7 billion. And that is when the US says and Canada says, hey guys, you owe me, right? We're partners, right? We should be kind of equal. Yeah, but you know what? I have another problem. We got into this. 80% of what Mexico does export to the US, 76% of what Canada exports sells to the US, but the US sells combined 32%. So that is the imbalance that we're seeing. I'm not saying that tariffs are good. I'm saying that there is a reaction because the deal is not the deal that we agreed. The big three, okay? That is 2022, same 2024. What we consume in California, it is almost around 21 or 22 states that what they're consuming from China. There's a lot of dependency, guys. There's a lot coming in. What opportunities that we have? Those are the connected economies. Those are the economies. You are on the real estate market. You are on that side of the house. When you start thinking of which are the investment that the youth will be looking into, they will be looking into these ones. Okay? Those countries, they can do something different. It is not about being more, working more. This is being more intelligent. Okay. Right now it is crazy. You need to invest more hours or work hard here. It doesn't make any more sense right now. GDP, GDP that is it's gonna grow. It's gonna grow. Know how we want it, but it's gonna grow. There are like three slides, guys. Okay, and this is what Lucas was referring. Is what we have at the border is very important. There is around 4.4 million employment at the border. Okay, if you take a photo of how many U.S. manufacturing employees are depending from the connection with China, it's around a million. Okay? So if you take China out of the equation, there is a lot. You will lose some jobs as well. This is an interesting movie. I think you saw this, right? You remember that scene, right? When the guy asks, you know what, whatever, everything that you did brought you here. And then he shuts, right? That is the status quo that we're living at the companies right now. We're thinking that it's gonna change. We're not doing anything different. We're thinking that since this guy, Mr. Trump, changed his mind 3 times before, he's gonna change that again. There were a day and a half that he didn't change his mind in March, right? Remember? When he said, you know what, let's go live with the tariffs. It was a day and a half. Okay? You know how much, sorry. My daughter was here, she would make fun of me. How much dollars were paid at the border of Tijuana that day and a half? Between $5 and $7 million. It was free money that got into the US. 1 day and a half. I'm waiting for him to do the math of all the border crossings. And he will say, you know what, with 1 day and a half, guys, we got, I don't know how many minutes. Then he will ring a bell here. He will say, you know what, he's right. Let's do it for 3 weeks. Let's do it for a month. But who will pay for it? Right? The coupling and the risking, that is something that we'll be seeing. My recommendation is start thinking that your customer on real estate will look for smaller spaces with all the benefits of a big space. Meaning, if I have a space in Tijuana, how do I build that in half of it? I can produce the same. Okay. Start thinking about the risking, meaning how do I have less risk? Okay. There is the majority of the contracts are signed there, revised here. There will be a change on the USMCA of how do you sign contracts on this. Okay, just stay tuned for that. The layers that we're seeing is pretty much everything. Okay, strategic goods, the first one, then multinational enterprises, everybody that has an operation there, it needs to be the contract needs to be well controlled. But at the end of the day, it's, you know what, catch up. These are, for us, what the US defined. Okay, New Mexico is going to provide services of this, mostly energy, medical devices, automotive, transportation. What will be happening here on this specific area is if you're going to pay 90 cents Tijuana for something or square feet, you're going to pay $1.50 here. It might have more sense to pay $1.50 here because you get rid of all the tariff, you get rid of all this pain, all this thought process that you will be having. At the end of the day, the strategy that we have right now will change, and there is you need to read between the lines on what they call ABL. asset-based loan. Okay, meaning if you are there in Mexico and want to get a loan on what you own there, you are not getting a loan on what you got, right? If you move it just 3 inches into a dike, then I can give you money. So the process here is that many companies will start looking into having something here. We're looking to. Sorry guys, already have my broker. Sorry. But we're looking into it. Why is that? Because it makes the most sense. If I have my finished goods here, everything here, I can get a loan along with not double digits like you will get in Mexico. From my side is everything. David, thank you very much. Have a great day. There's a lot of wind.